Okay. La 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 la. Everything seems to be going just fine. Perfect. Hey there, welcome to my makeup stream. This is a stream that I... Stupid. Hello there, my name is Benjamin Moeller. I'm a paleontologist, and I'm making up for a stream that I did yesterday that had some technical difficulties. Normally, my weekly streams aren't a big deal, but there's a really important message that I wanted to get across this time, and so I'm going to redo this and kind of go over just some of the different, the exciting news and some of the points that I wanted to make about where I'm going in my career from here, and how I incorporated the work you're looking at right now, Shadowbox, my free virtual museum, into those futures, and just kind of go from there. So the big news is that a couple of weeks ago, I received an offer letter in response to an application that I submitted at the end of December to start a PhD program at the University of Arizona's College of Information Science. So the way that getting into grad school works is you have to fill out applications, you pay a bunch of money for those applications to be processed, and then several months later, you either receive an offer letter or you don't. And I have been in this process before. It's actually been 4.5 years since I first graduated with my bachelor's, my 2 bachelor degrees from the University of Arizona. And in that time, I've been trying to figure out my path forward into graduate school. For those of you who aren't aware, there are kind of 3 tiers of college. You have a bachelor's degree, your undergrad, and then in grad school you have master's degrees and the PhD. And fortunately for me, you don't always have to do a master's before the PhD. In this case, I wanted to go straight for the PhD because that program is funded, whereas for a master's, I would have to take out student loans in order to be able to afford that, and I'm just really not in a financial position to be able to do that. So a little bit of background on me. Why is a paleontologist going into a College of Information Science? So I have been in this career for 19 years. 19 years ago was in the summer of 2007. So maybe closer to like 16 and 3/4, but 18 and 3/4, but who's counting? I went on my first dig. I started, learning field skills and how to collect fossils and things like that. And somewhere in between then and now, I became a paleontologist. I am someone who participates in the studying of the ancient Earth, and that, by definition, is what a paleontologist is. There's a lot of misconception about requiring certain levels of education. You don't even need a bachelor's degree to be a paleontologist. There are paleontologists out there who have never earned one before, but have made wonderful and successful careers working in a variety of different avocational formats, as well as in typical careers. There really is no one way to become a paleontologist. And so if academics isn't necessarily a requirement, that you can make your way forward without any college education, is fieldwork a requirement? And that's not really true either, because there are paleontologists out there who don't ever really go in the field. They work on, they do collections-based research. They see fossils like the one, the 3D models you see before you, stuff that has already been collected and assembled into collections, and they do analyses based off of what they see. And there are, you can make an entire career in this field without ever stepping into the field or finding any fossils of your own. So fieldwork isn't necessarily a requirement. And, publications, even publications aren't necessarily a hard requirement. There are plenty of people who, might put out a publication once every 5 years, once every 10 years, or even more infrequently than that, but what they're working on are supporting other types of research. They're doing fossil preparation, they might be doing collections-based work, they might be in administration. There are so many different ways to be a paleontologist. And so to kind of preface here, I just want to make it clear that, as someone who does have college education, as someone who does have publications, those are things that I would point to. And the fact that I do field work and have been doing field work for a long time. I'm co-director of the Menifee Paleontological Project, and a co-principal investigator on those permits. So I'm a paleontologist. Those are all things that I do as part of my work, but I don't want anybody to point to those things as evidence to define other people as not being paleontologists. We all get into this field, we all do our work in very different ways, and what I want to express is kind of how I decided to move forward based off of my needs and my interests. So, what we're looking at here is a free virtual museum that I launched in Steam Early Access in, in January of 2025. And this was the result of several prior years of trying to find my way, forward from having the undergrad degrees and wanting to get into graduate school. But the question is, what is the most economically wise choice to make? Because there are some people who can go straight into a PhD and their degree will say PhD in paleontology specifically, and that's great for them. That puts you in a great position to start in professorships and doing other sorts of work like that. But there are not many jobs of that type. And while, a degree in paleontology specifically is interesting, and it would be really fun to spend time where that's like my only responsibility to focus on, I'm not in an economic position where I can be competitive and compete with independently funded people whose singular goal is getting one of those professorships. And I'm not even necessarily someone who wants to be a college professor somewhere. So, and you also have to keep in mind that in the United States and in Arizona, where I live, where I can receive in-state tuition, again, cost is a huge part of the thing, degrees in paleontology are not common. And a lot of the places where you can get them, places like Texas or Montana, are not necessarily the most friendly towards people of a variety of diverse backgrounds. And so there were a lot of reasons why I chose for my undergrad to move from kind of the Phoenix area where I grew up for 18 years, come to Tucson to the University of Arizona and get 2 bachelor's degrees, one of them in ecology and evolutionary biology, and the second in geosciences with an emphasis on earth, oceans, and climate. So both of those things enabled me to learn a lot about paleontology, but also included a bunch of stuff not directly in paleontology. So that gives me not just a wider breadth of experience and make me a better scientist in that way, with more kind of broad expertise than just the thing that initially got me into science. It also means that my job prospects are better. I'm able to be competitive for jobs that are of a wider variety of descriptions. So it was the same kind of decision that led me to first initially looking into the College of Information Science. And it was sort of my need to bring my knowledge in paleontology to the public and wanting to make it something that was accessible that made me create Shadowbox in the first place. So what we're looking at here is an exhibit I put together early last year. It's called Real, False, Phony, and it displays different types of fossils, so to speak. Real fossils, like the one here in the center, where you can see, all of the blood vessels and the sort of internal spongy texture of real fossil bone, contrasted with, phony fake mosasaur jaws that have some real teeth in here, and then totally faked plaster jaws, and then stuff that might look like a fossil but isn't actually, these sort of pseudo fossil eggs. And this is a really basic concept, just wanting to be able to show the public the difference between something you might pick up in the field that's a real fossil, something you might see in a rock shop that isn't exactly authentic, and something you might find in the middle of nowhere that reminds you of a fossil but actually isn't. And I've even added, since I released this exhibit, I even added a fragment of a fossil eggshell just to show the difference. This is what a real fossil eggshell looks like, in addition to these really cool images taken under a microscope. So the work of a paleontologist can look like a lot of different things, and one of the things that I really excel at is in public outreach, and going to in-person events, which I do fairly frequently, and I have been doing for a very long time, and taking my experience in the field as someone who goes out into the middle of nowhere and finds fossils, and bring that to, city centers and libraries and museums and things like that. And in this case now in the digital realm, so that people from all around the world can enjoy and learn. And in fact, I know, because Steam shows you download demographics, I know that there are people literally on every continent except Antarctica that have downloaded this game and have played it. From Namibia to Iraq, Indonesia, Turkey, France, the UK, Germany, Canada. About 40% are also Americans here in the United States. So I got started on the Parent-Teacher Guide to Paleontology, which is the Patreon that I set up, where I started writing articles, and many of these articles are now embedded, as you can see, within the game, if Cloudflare will let me pass. I started writing articles, I started creating expedition videos, and okay, you're just going to give an error there. Sometimes the internet doesn't want to work. I think this is going to work this time. So I started writing articles. Here we go. I started creating videos, and within a few years I was also taking 3D models of fossils, and I've integrated all of that together here into this virtual museum experience. And I definitely intend to continue building new exhibits and continue to refine Shadowbox and continue to make this an even better experience. It is still in its open beta. The software has only been released for about 14 months at this point, 15 months now, something like that. So it's still early days. You can see there's still lots of areas I haven't released any exhibits for, and a lot of areas where, there's a lot more in the Eocene I can show. There's even more in the Cretaceous I can show, even though that's already the largest crypt that I have unsealed so far. So there's a lot more that I can show here, but what I would be able to learn in a College of Information Science is not just, I can continue to do my studies in paleontology, continue learning about all these different animal groups, all these different fossil deposits, but also learn about this archiving and cataloging and the digital outreach aspects, of which I don't have any formal training in yet. And in particular, I'm going to highlight this exhibit here, the Burgess Shale. This was a really cool exhibit to get to put together because these fossils are local to me. These are kept at the University of Arizona here in Tucson. And you'll see in the corner with a lot of these, if what I've scanned is part of a public collection, it will say public specimen, and I'll try to include the specimen number. These are things that people look at when you're a researcher. Say you work on Morella, this really interesting, not a trilobite, but something that looks somewhat superficially similar. They've got these backwards facing horns and these long antennae. They're really interesting creatures, and it was extremely cool to get to scan this fossil. There's the Morella there on that plate. And if you're someone who researches Morella, you would probably like to know that there's an example of this here in Tucson. And if this particular piece, is of interest to you, you should be able to contact a collections manager, be able to arrange a visit to go and see. And unfortunately, one of the things that holds back paleontology here in the state of Arizona is the fact that our public repositories, our public collections, are not in great shape. There are still a few of them that are out there, but the University of Arizona Laboratory of Paleontology, the UALP, that actually shut down in 1996. Now, I was born in 1999, so there was never any chance that I would benefit from this public collection. And as I continue to go through Shadowbox here, I'm going to point out there are a lot of specimens formerly cataloged in the UALP, like this one, this really nice Favosites coral. We're in the Silurian of Kentucky now, and these are all different pieces of coral that I came across while opening these different wooden drawers that haven't been touched in potentially years, things that haven't really been closely looked at. And some of these have specimen numbers, but some of them don't. This one, these Plasmapora, I don't believe were ever officially cataloged. And so they don't actually have, sorry for the flickering, just had to click off real quick. These fossils don't have an official specimen number. So for someone who works on Plasmapora and you'd like to examine these specimens, it's a little bit harder. And in order to publish on fossils, they have to be in a public collection. That is a non-negotiable aspect of how academic research works. And so not only can we not take new material at U of A until we have a proper, public research collection, but these ones that are already in the collection can't really be studied until those issues are solved. And, knowledge of fossils, knowledge of paleontology is extremely useful. These ones are some of my favorites. This was such a cool thing to be able to scan. These are all types of coral. Not only, it is important and it is useful to have 19 years of experience in paleontology under my belt to be able to do that kind of work, but you also, need to learn a few things about the philosophy of building digital archives and how to, for example, build out a website, a digital catalog that outside researchers are able to access. How about the photography that I've done with these fossils? How about the 3D modeling? How do I make those things accessible not just to researchers, but also to different schools? So here in Tucson, we are not a wealthy community, and we don't really have a natural history museum. We've got, a couple of displays on the University of Arizona campus. We've got the Arizona State Museum, which is geared towards archaeology. And we have, the Sonora Desert Museum, which is really more of a wildlife rehab area. So there's not a ton of emphasis on fossils. The Desert Museum is going to be your best bet looking for fossils in town, but that's not really their main focus. And they certainly aren't employing paleontologists. So there were, in kind of reviewing the state of things here in this community that I really have found myself attached to and embedded within. I've lived here in Tucson 9 years now. Not 9 years, since 2017. So actually, 9 years. It's hard for me to do math on the fly when I'm on the spot, but I've almost lived in town for a decade, and in addition to wanting to fix these local problems, because I am someone who is from Arizona and I want to see these problems fixed so that young people who are in the position I was in, wanting to get started in paleontology, and you need to be able to see real fossils, and having an accessible public collection is a key part of making that happen. So I came across this College of Information Science, and I instantly realized when looking through the class list and looking through the professors I would be able to work under, I realized that actually this would be an excellent opportunity to learn some completely new skills for me. Here's yet more University of Arizona fossils, these Mucrospirifer. These are all different types of bivalves. We're now in the Devonian. Check that out. So these are all just things that I found in drawers here that I 3D scanned. Some of them have specimen numbers, some of them don't. And, not everybody has the ability to access fossil collections is another part of the problem. They are supposed to be as accessible as possible, but unfortunately, because of staffing issues, because of funding issues, and just because of a need to protect the original fossils, not everybody gets to directly access this stuff. Not everyone gets to get up close. So part of building out Shadowbox was to kind of address that. I have a privilege in being able to see real fossils, and I want to use that using the modern tools that are available in order to create something that's more accessible. And so, basically, I put together an application that explained my background and my interests and sent it in, and paid a good amount of money to send that in. Here's yet more UALP fossils. These are more brachiopods, lamp shells, animals that look like clams but they're not, and you can even see these little bumps here are where spines would have attached to the shell. We are now in the Carboniferous period. And then I had to wait. And eventually, as of a couple of weeks ago, I got that offer letter, and I pretty much signed it right away. There wasn't much to think about because, I'm currently a part-time employee at the university and also making money as I can through Patreon. And while a grad student stipend isn't, it's certainly not like anything to brag about, for me, it's a big step up in salary, and it's going to really change things for me to be able to address my own needs, make sure that my pantry is fully stocked, make sure I'm not worrying about accessing healthcare because I'll be getting health insurance again. So there's a lot of great things that I'm looking forward to. And in the early stages of a PhD, you're starting to figure out what it is you want to spend your time, researching. So I certainly know what I'm interested in. And in that first year, I'm going to learn a lot more about what the options are available to me. But, this was the idea, and I'm really looking forward to seeing, what comes out of it. Because, again, there's not just classes that will help me as a scientist, classes in Bayesian analysis and GIS that are going to be great assets for me as a paleontologist, but learning how to really beef up my outreach skills, make Shadowbox an even better experience because they offer coding classes and different instructional work on creating better interactive modules and things like that for serious STEM games. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in that college that I'm super interested in looking into. So then that comes to the question, what do I anticipate changing? So first of all, I made this announcement yesterday when I did this original stream, is that I'm going to take a break from MicroStream. These are the streams that I've been doing, in the afternoons on Mondays starting at 4 p.m. local time. And that's been really fun, in particular when I've got sediment to go through, when I've got work picking through to find microfossils. It gives me a convenient time to sit down and actually do that work. But something that I've never been particularly good at is learning how to rest. And a PhD is a big responsibility. It's a lot of work. And I have frankly been pretty stressed out for quite a while trying to secure those next steps because there's not been a lot of certainty in my future for quite a long time, 4.5 years. I've been looking for these next steps. And now that I know what those next steps are, I shouldn't be as stressed out about, where's my healthcare going to go? If I want to, get treatment for this or that or the other thing, how am I going to afford that? And because of that, I need to really consciously spend some time making myself relax. And so I'm going to take some stuff off of my plate, in particular because MicroStream, having something like a live stream to do at the end of my day on a Monday is kind of stressful anyway. I picked Mondays because it alliterates with MicroStream. When MicroStream comes back, it might not be on Mondays, just to give myself a little bit of a break so that I have better energy and I'm not so exhausted doing this every week. But I also, I'm kind of logically at a point where I don't have a ton of photography I need to do. It's going to be another few months before I'm back out in the field and looking for more, collecting more sediment to be looking for microfossils in. So I've got some time to give myself a break, and I'm going to take that opportunity. There will still be live streams when I release new updates to Shadowbox. You'll still be able to see through Patreon my articles, my Q&As, and the field expeditions, the videos that I put out when I'm working in the Menifee Formation. That's this exhibit we're looking at here. And there is certainly going to be some very interesting developments in Shadowbox, and in particular in this Menifee exhibit, for the year to come. I can promise that. We've got some really exciting things that are on the way that I'm so ready to finally share. Stuff that has been in the works for quite a long time. That's an interesting bug. That's weird. All right, let's go ahead and quit to main menu. If you encounter bugs in the game, that's usually the best way to handle it. So what am I saying here? Basically, there are still great ways to interact with the work that I'm doing. If you're not on the Discord, there are links to join that on my Patreon. If you've never heard of the Patreon page before, it's patreon.com/ptpaleo, PTPALEO. You can sign up there for free and you'll get notified, when I put out public articles and stuff like that. But you'll also get, if you sign up for even $3 a month, you get at least one article per week. So there's a lot of cool stuff to enjoy. And that's a great way to continue supporting me. I'll still be here on YouTube from time to time. If you want to reach out directly, for example, business inquiries, my email is ptpaleo@proton.me. That's my Proton mail address. There are lots of ways to still stay in touch, but part of what I really want to be smarter about is resting and relaxing and allowing myself to kind of unclench after, it's not even 4.5 years. Really, a lot of my life has been leading up to get into the PhD program. And now that I'm in one, the goal is going to change to graduating and getting that degree. And it's really exciting to be able to, after basically 19 years, the goal was going into this stuff. Yeah, to get what I want, I need a PhD. That's, that is the degree that allows you to pull your own research permits and do collecting on public lands. So once I've got that, the world is my oyster as far as I'm concerned. That's going to be what I'm keeping in my mind as far as the long-term goal. And I'm going to try to learn as much as I can, but before I start in the actual program, I really need to allow myself to rest and be restored a little bit. So that's kind of where I'm at so far. The only thing that is going to change as far as my posting schedule is to give MicroStream a bit of a break. Everything else should be pretty normal. But I'm going to use that time to really focus on myself a little bit and make sure that I can continue providing both the stuff that subscribers, supporters on Patreon are paying for, and then also the free stuff like Shadowbox. Everything you're looking at in this video is stuff that is available for free if you have a Windows PC. And I would love to be able to, and I will enjoy continuing to make this stuff accessible for everybody. But in order to do that, I have to be a little bit kind to myself and not be so tough. And because as people close to me remind me often, I am my harshest critic. I am the person who pushes myself the most. So while I still have some big goals for the year, and getting those done is going to be a bit of a mercy on myself to get stuff off of my plate and ready for this PhD. I'm also going to spend some time studying how to take better care of myself. So that's kind of where I'm at. I really appreciate everybody who watches these videos, posts comments, and very nice things like that. I hope there's plenty of stuff to check out, and I will keep you guys as best updated as I can. I don't think that vlogging through my PhD is a thing that anybody wants to see, but in theory, if people are interested in hearing about that process, let me know, and I'll see what makes sense, I guess. But for the meantime, I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. I've got some fun stuff to do this week. I'm gonna be visiting the middle school my mom used to teach at and doing another career day presentation. So I finally got a cool update I can give about the trajectory that I'm on. So I'm going to be preparing for stuff like that, doing more 3D scanning, more article writing, and hopefully some resting and relaxation too. So thank you guys for watching, and I will see you very soon.